Welcome to Unhinged Magi! How y'all doing today? We're going to talk about something that we love to talk about.
Yep.
Tacos, because we just ate some.
Yep.
So good. I am now full of Taco Bell.
I am full of chips and cheese.
Oh man. Well, I had 5 other Doritos, but you know, it's still good.
Yeah.
And I also had Doritos Locos Tacos.
I probably shouldn't call that cheese. I hesitate to call it cheese.
Yeah,
but I mean, I eat it as
it's
cheese.
It's a good cheese substitute.
Yeah, I really like cheese substitute. I mean, it's something's not right in my head. How much I like that.
Chemical fortification. Yum.
Oh. Yeah, my skin's probably turning green right now.
Yeah, that's true. Man, wait till it comes out the other end.
So we were talking about something else also.
That's right. We were talking about reserve list stuff.
Yep.
So we were talking about whether or not what happens if Wizards of the Coast decides to print. And I know we've talked about this a few times.
Yep.
And what would happen when they sue and we go to the courts and then they start giving us the money.
Because at some point in the past, we were actually on different sides of this debate on whether or not a lawsuit against Wizards of the Coast over the reserve list would actually succeed or not.
Right, exactly. And I was under the impression that it probably still would not.
I'm definitely under the impression that it would succeed. But you know, the discussion's really good because it brings out caveats, like places that need to be clarified, because there's places where it would and it wouldn't.
Right, and we're talking about market value, because all of it is really based on your damages, the losses that you suffered.
Yep, fair market value.
But what happens if the market doesn't crash? Let's say they print it and nothing changes.
Yep.
You can't sue.
That's right. That is one of the biggest caveats out there. And I know some people talk about that, but like I'll own that straight up. Like if Wizards printed the reserve list and the cards in the reserve list literally did not drop in value, there's no lawsuit.
Exactly.
Because there's no damages. You can only sue if there's not only that there is damages, but then you can actually prove them as well.
Exactly. So let's go ahead with this also, another scenario. Let's say they decide to print it and it tanks, whoosh! But then during the court case it goes skyrocketing back up. What happens then?
Yeah, that one also complicates it because if your value, like during the lawsuit, recovers to previous, then there's now those damages you were claiming in the lawsuit you can't claim anymore. What you would instead have to change, you maybe have to do a mistrial. And then you would have to prove to them that that temporary loss of value caused you damages in like another way, which is like suddenly that starts to get really complicated.
If you still own the cards and then it goes back up, you technically didn't lose anything.
Right.
There was a short dip. Right?
So like maybe like the only case I can think of is like say you had a huge loan you took out and you had to make a capstone payment on the loan within this 3-month period and you were relying upon these reserve list cards and then Wizards prints the reserve list, your value drops and then your loan becomes due, you default on your loan and then your cards go back up so you're like, hey, the timing mattered.
Yeah.
It would have to be something like that.
And that would have to be like contracts already in place and that is the time frame that it happened.
Yeah, and you're bringing in so many other variables that I generally think, like in the case you brought up where there's the value loss and then back up, if that happened, I think the majority of the lawsuits would just be dead in the water.
Exactly.
I totally agree with that.
Now, the question is, how much of a loss would you have, every individual would have to take in order for there to actually be a lawsuit?
That's a really good question.
Because we can all speculate that the prices will go down. Sure, why not? Okay?
And to varying degrees on each card, by the way. But yeah.
But the overwhelming statement is that the most of the loss might just be the dual lands of revised.
Yeah.
Because the other cards will kind of maintain their value.
Yeah, the higher end cards, especially in the more valued sets, Alpha, Beta, Unlimited, would hold their value much better. I fully agree with that. But the revised, like if anything, like dual land wise, is going to take it in the shorts, it would be the revised dual lands. Because you got 1,000 Alpha dual lands, 3,000 Beta dual lands, 15,000 Unlimited dual lands, and then almost 300,000 revised dual lands.
Yeah.
I mean, these things are not equivalent at all.
No, they're not. So that being said, how much of a value is there that would tank? Now, we're saying that they printed it. They've printed it. It's not the exact artwork. It's not the exact look and feel because we got the new borders and frames.
You're saying like if they printed the new reserve list, The new versions.
The new versions
Okay.
of the reserve list.
Okay.
Everything looks different. It doesn't look the same. It is a playable card though. Very important there.
Yeah.
Okay? So I don't think the value would go enough down or maintain its value down in order to actually warrant a lawsuit.
Okay, so I do disagree on that one. And the main reason, like if all we're talking about is like old school players, then I would actually agree because these people are passionate about their cards and they love their cards. So if that's your point, I actually don't disagree with that. But the reason why I do disagree with the revised dual lands is you have to look at the number of people that want those cards in the various formats. I had a discussion with Charles Klein a while ago about the number of old schoolers around the world. He thought it was like 3,000, 4,000. I'm telling him it's like 15 to 30,000 old schoolers. Whatever it is, like however many people actually play old school or vintage format, you got to realize that there's millions of Commander players around the world. And with the revised dual lands, you're talking about millions of players that want, each copy of that card is like printed to almost 300,000 copies. So that is a much bigger market. Now the Commander players don't have that necessarily that same desire that we old schoolers, that nostalgia. So I don't think the value loss would necessarily be the old players. The value loss in the revised dual lands I think would come from the Commander players. Because they would be dumping the revised dual lands, especially as they saw all the other ones coming into the market. They'd be dumping them and going and buying the cheaper new ones. Because, I mean, they just get to cash out. They just go cash out their revised dual lands, make this huge pile of money, and then they just buy Commander decks for days, right?
Yeah, but I don't think Commander players buy Commander decks. Really.
But true, they buy singles.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But still, like, it's the Commander players that I say would tank the reserve list dual lands.
See, I don't think that way because I think you would still have that want of having the revised dual lands inside your deck that you already have because it's your special deck. Commander players have been playing with these revised dual lands for a very long time.
That is definitely a thing, and there's definitely people that think that way.
Right?
Yeah.
And so when we have these new ones come out, they're going to put it at a mythic slot or that kind of stuff. They're not stupid.
Right.
All right. And so, because they know that's going to sell boxes, and that's the primary thing. And so these that come out would actually be more, well, not more expensive. It would still be on that cusp and probably increasing in value. And I'm looking at like Blood Moon and that kind of stuff coming out. All right. That's not reserved list, and it gets printed all the time.
Right.
And everybody wants what Blood Moon? What Blood Moon do you want? You want the one from the dark.
The dark. Yeah.
Right. And that one doesn't tank at all very much.
Okay, so I'm not going to disagree with the essence of that point. But what I will call out is like, okay, if you look at like, say the Power 9, right? There's
Power 9!
There's like 18,000 Power 9, somewhere to 20,000 Power 9 that were printed. Yeah, in that range, you know, for the Alpha, Beta, Unlimited.
Absolutely.
Okay, so most people that have a Power 9 card are not going to sell.
No.
Right? They're just not. No. But the market on the Power 9 cards has gone up and down several times in the last few years.
Yes.
Well, keep in mind, even though like 99% of the Power 9 that exists never went on the market, it was a small percentage of them that did go in the market. Like at any point you go in and you see like, you know, 25 Mox Emeralds or something, that's a tiny percentage of the total potential market. But 25 Mox Emeralds suddenly hitting eBay and flooding everything drives that price down.
Yeah, that's true. Absolutely.
And so that's the point that I'm making. Like, if I'm not going to disagree that you have a lot of people that would hold on to their revised dual lands because they love them. I'm not going to disagree with that. But what I am going to say is with 300,000 revised dual lands that were printed, enough could still come into the market and tank the price for all the others.
It could. And then someone's going to come out there and sweep them up.
And that would drive the price right back up, or at least stabilize it.
So that's what I'm saying. It's going to go like that.
This is all speculation, you guys. Like, you can't prove this.
We're not proving anything.
I feel like it would do this, and then a little uptick, and then the previous price was here, and I think it would do this, and then over a long period of time, like years, it would eventually go back.
Yeah. See, I'm not seeing years go down the line.
I think it would.
I'm thinking months.
Well,
and I'm thinking, what is the duration of time between getting the court case filed, getting everything up and running for the trial and that kind of stuff?
Probably years.
Yeah.
Probably years.
When will actually, so if it actually gets back up there, right?
Yeah.
then will there be actually a reason for the lawsuit at that point?
So
That's the hard
So
one.
we already agreed on that piece.
I know.
That if the value was at the time of the lawsuit was back up, then the lawsuit would get dispersed. So, but I think it's a different thing. If you talk about revised dual land that I feel is going to go down with a little tick up and then barely over many, many years go up, I do think that's going to happen. But like, say like an alpha Black Lotus, for example, I think it would have a little bit of a dip down, an immediate back up, and then flat line. So I think alpha Black Lotus is going to be like boom, like that, and a revised is going to go way down, a little dip up, and then it's going to be a very different pattern for those two.
Okay, well let's talk about the difference between a loss of a graded card versus a non-graded card.
Okay.
Because I don't think a graded card can be even stipulated as being a loss inside that market for this even lawsuit. But I think a graded card needs to be even thrown out if it's graded. Because you can't, it's a different thing. You don't play with a
Wizards
graded
never
card.
sold them as a graded card, is your argument.
Yes.
So they changed it, like it became something else when it became a graded card, that not to the detriment or gain of Wizards.
Exactly.
Okay, so I'm not going to disagree with that, but I will say that I do think it would still apply, because if I have an item and I can prove that a piece of the price structure of that item is based on a reserve list promise, and then the reserve list promise breaks, and this is where like now it's your job in court to prove it. If like the reserve list breaks and this graded card within like days has an immediate drop in price after being very stable for many years, I do think you can sue for that.
Well,
Because but that's the trick.
Yeah.
It's you have to prove that correlation of those dates.
yeah, see, I think the graded card, if it's like a high end, like a 10, and that kind of stuff, you won't have the data points to be able to prove that, because those don't transact where you can actually go this.
Yeah, and that's a really good one, because like we were talking about this earlier, so like I'm leaping right ahead to our discussion because this was really good. The success of a court case is completely dependent upon your ability to prove that the reserve list had a correlation of data break and then they had a market loss. But like if you're talking about like the one and only BGS 10 in the world,
Yeah.
like it's never getting transacted. Like you don't have data to lean on.
Exactly.
And that lack of data would make you unable to prove it. Therefore, you can't sue for it.
Exactly.
But that's not because the reserve list didn't actually affect it. It's just that
You
don't have the data to prove that it affected it in a court. Because if you can't prove it, you can't prove value loss, you can't sue for a value you can't prove.
Right. And so now we're going to talk about one last thing, right?
The fair market value one?
No, we did that.
Oh, we did. Okay.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about tokens.
Oh, yeah, tokens.
Will tokens, if Wizards of the Coast just prints tokens of the actual original set, would be able to sue at that point? Because it's not a playable card.
We should maybe even talk about like the lack of design because of reserve list cards as a restrictor after that. But okay, so the tokens one, I don't actually know of anything that says they can't print tokens of cards, and I also don't know of anything that says they can't do collector's edition again.
Right.
Like I don't think that actually violates the essence of the reserve list. I don't think
I don't think it does. Because it's not playable. They're not going to allow it in tournaments.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just it. They can even put a different back, put a token on it. I mean, they put ads on the back.
Yeah. Because like the reserve list was talking about functionally equivalent cards, and a collector's edition is just straight out of the bus not.
Correct.
Because it's not tournament legal.
Right.
So yeah, like I've always felt like tokens and collector's edition they could do, but even though I think that they could, Wizards like takes this hard line and they're just like, no, we're not going to do it. Like anytime they're asked about it, they're like, no.
Exactly.
And I don't understand that, honestly.
I don't understand that either. That drives me nuts.
Maybe they're just being overly reserved.
Yeah, and that stupid thing where they said that we don't print tokens of cards when they print tokens of cards.
Yeah, they totally do.
Yeah, that was just stupid.
Yeah, here's a zombie token. Here's a 5/5 flying red dragon token. Here's a 4/4 angel token. Right? Here's a sapperling token. Yes, you do. Wizards. Okay, so maybe the last one discussed it. Okay, so we were having this discussion also. He was saying like, what do you mean that they haven't done functional reprints of cards? And so we talked it out and like, no, you guys, do the Pepsi challenge on this. What I'm telling you, If you want to see, did they do functional reprints of reserveless cards? The answer is no. And if you look at like dual lands, there is no dual land that's like the same kind of purpose, and it does what a dual land does, but with no drawbacks. It doesn't exist. They all have drawbacks. Either they make you lose life, or they come into play tapped, or they have this other restriction, you have to show a card in your hand. There's something on every single one of them.
Yeah, and then he pointed out Rock of Courageous. It's red and 3, right? And
Reserve
it's a 3/3.
card.
Terrible casting cost for the card for a 3/3 flyer.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
And I was like, well, there has to be something better now.
Yeah, there isn't. And it's not at
weird.
that casting cost. Like
I would think that it would be, because that's 4 casting cost. Nowadays we have 2 drop, 3 drops of everything.
yeah, so there's cards that are better, but they're situational, right? Like you can, if you have 4 defense, it's gonna have like 2 red in the casting cost, or it makes you discard a card when it comes into play, or it gets minus counters afterwards. Like they don't do 1 red, 3 colorless, 3/3 flyer, and then something better. They don't do that.
It's crazy. Because I figured by now there would be something better.
Yeah. So the reserve list is actually a thorn in Wizards of the Coast side as game designers. They're not allowed to do certain cards because these reserve list ones exist. Like Thunder Spirit is another really good example.
Yeah.
Like a 2/2 white flyer with first strike, which isn't that crazy
Isn't
by
that
today's
crazy,
standards.
no.
But they have to design around it because Thunder Spirit exists and it's on the reserve list.
Yeah, that's so weird.
Yeah.
That one shocked me. I figured they had already did something better than that, you know. But I like some of the dual lands better, but that's just because it's situational, as he said.
Yeah.
And I didn't put that in, because I actually said in the car, they have dual lands that are better. And he's like, no,
they really don't. The
You're
closest
just talking about situations.
Yeah, the closest I would say is the fetch lands are probably situationally better, because even though you lose a life and that's the drawback, being able to go get a land out of your deck, you get a shuffle effect, you get a deck search, right? If you're going for dual lands, you can get any color you want, because you can get a dual land that has the color you're going for plus another color.
Yeah.
Or you can get a basic if you want to be more solid, right? Or like, people never talk about this with the fetch lands. Like if you have a wasteland and you want to blow up my mana base and I put a fetch land down, I'm going to get to 2 mana.
Yep.
Because by turn 2, if you waste my fetch, I can just crack the fetch, and then next turn I put down something. I can put down 2 and tap for 2. You can't stop people. No one ever talks about that with the fetch lands, but they allow your mana base to respond to destroy effects effectively.
True.
At least some.
So.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. So that was interesting, because I didn't realize it was just because I'm using it in a situation.
Yeah. Yeah, so anyways, there you go, guys. Reserve list video. We were just talking about it. We thought it would make good content for you guys.
Yeah, we figured since we were getting heated, we would go ahead and get you guys heated too.
Heated. I probably come off as heated. I need to watch that. Okay, we'll talk to you guys later.
Later, guys.
Bye.
Bye.